Hello, everybody. It is me, Corey, truly evil Bob, on KRUA here in Anchorage, Alaska. Hey, I do a show called Capes and Lasers. It is starting right now, every Tuesday at 1 o'clock. And hey, and what this show is about is we talk about science fiction, fantasy, and comic books. And if you missed the show, you can always pick it up. It'll be on YouTube the next day at my channel, Truly Evil Bob. And I'm also on Twitter, so if you want to join the conversation, if you want to send me a message, please do so on Twitter at Truly Evil Bob. Today, we are going to talk about what makes a good graphic novel. There are tons of graphic novels out there, and I have read one recently that is the worst of the worst. But before we get into that, I want to talk about some recent news. What happened in Charlottesville was a great tragedy. I can't help but think of the people who got injured, lost their lives, and their families. And this is a great tragedy. And what's great about science fiction and comic books is that these things that happened, they're warned about so many times through Star Trek and Star Wars, Captain America. We see this over and over again in our most favorite stories. And maybe if we all enjoyed science fiction more, enjoyed comic books more, we can come together over our shared fandom. And I want to think the world is made a better place because we have things in the world like Star Trek. Of course, we don't want these events to happen at all, and I hope America can move forward and the world can move forward in a more positive way. We can see the faults, the people who are the white supremacists, the Nazi groups, these people can hopefully one day see that they're on the wrong side of things, that they got things backwards. And I hope they read a Captain America comic. I hope they watch a Star Trek episode and get it, finally something finally clicks and they understand these things. But enough about that, enough about the sadness. We'll move on. There's lots to talk about in the world of sci-fi and fantasy and comic books. And we like to talk about those, the things that happened this past week in a segment I call the Daily Planet. Roll the presses. Here we go. So, Amazon Prime, later on this month, is starting out The Tick. They previewed The Tick last year with one episode, testing the water, see how well it's received, and it was super well received. People loved this, and now it's getting a full season starting this month, and I am psyched about this. But Amazon is doing more. It's going the further mile, and they released that. They have hired David Tennant and Michael Sheen to play an angel and a demon in Good Omens, the Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett novel. If you don't know what Good Omens is, I don't want to help you on this one. So last week, I ordered Good Omens on Amazon, and it's coming in the mail. If you're listening outside of Anchorage, if you live in Alaska, you don't get 2-day shipping. It takes a week to get here, sometimes more. You get free regular shipping on Amazon Prime. So it takes a while, and I am looking forward to reading this book. I didn't even know that Good Omens was being turned into a series when I ordered it. I was just looking for something good to read. I was just looking for something to pass the time. And this little bit of kismet happened. And I love Neil Gaiman, and I love Terry Pratchett. Their work is phenomenal. If you haven't seen first read American Gods, the Neil Gaiman book. That one's amazing. And then watch the Starz series American Gods. That was mind-blowing. So, yeah, my goodness, this is going to be excellent. And the world will be a better place for it. Speaking of Neil Gaiman's Sandman is going to make a return in Dark Knight's Metal #1 by Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo. If you don't know what Dark Knights is, well, first let's talk about Sandman. If you don't know who Sandman is, way back in the day, Neil Gaiman did some graphic novels, one of which was called Sandman. It was published by Vertigo Comics, which is a subsidiary of DC Comics, which is a subsidiary of Warner Brothers Entertainment. So this graphic novel is one of the most phenomenal graphic novels you'll ever read. It's one of the seminal reads. And Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo started out with the Metal series. And it's only been in kind of previews first. We've had Prelude to Metal. I've read both of them. They're okay. They're nothing really big yet. They're setting up the characters. Batman, the Joker's going to be in it. Green Lantern is going to play a big part, and it revolves around Nth Metal, which is Hawkman and Hawkwoman. Their powers stem from this metal called Nth Metal, and apparently Nth Metal is the reason all superhero or super beings exist in the DC, or at least that's what the premise starting out seems to be. And the first comic is going to hit shelves soon, and in it will feature Neil Gaiman's Sandman. Now, Neil Gaiman is not writing this book, but it's the character that he created, and he will be playing a pivotal role. So if you are a fan of that, watch out. It's coming back. Speaking of DC Comics, let's keep going on that with the Justice League movie. Now, if you've been following the story, you know that Zack Snyder has taken a leave from this movie. He has given the movie over to Joss Whedon because Zack Snyder had a death in the family and has removed himself from the movie so he can mourn and be with his family, and we all wish him the best. Joss Whedon has come forward, and when he took over this movie, said he is going to follow Zack's vision. And for a while, it seems like he was doing just that. But there have been more and more reshoots. They've brought Superman back, but Superman has a mustache now because the guy doing Mission Impossible, because the actor is doing Mission Impossible, the new Mission Impossible movie, and the director wants him to have a mustache, and instead he can't shave it. So we might have a Superman with a mustache. But that is a matter of circumstance. We're looking to see what Joss Whedon going to stay true to Zack Snyder's vision? And we have evidence that he may not. Because these reshoots include alternate endings and a rebranding of the Cyborg character. Cyborg is going to be getting a lighter touch. He is going to be a more personal character. Apparently, Zack Snyder made this character very dark. If you don't know who Cyborg is a high school football player that had a tragic accident, and his father saves his life by melding metal and flesh, turning him into a cyborg. In this Justice League version, it looks like his cyborg parts will be of an otherworldly origin. He will be melded with an alien device known as a mother box. So Cyborg, in lots of interpretations of Cyborg, he is a fun-loving guy. He's not a jocular person. He doesn't make lots of quips and jokes, but he is really a personable person. He loves, hanging out and playing video games and having fun. And he loves life. He thinks life is fun. And that's that's the kind of character that I think fans are looking forward to. The guy who puts himself out there and is a kind of a bro, how much do you lift kind of guy. And I think Zack Snyder went a very darker way with the character. I think his vision was someone who doesn't know whether he is a machine or man, someone who is upset that he is a cyborg, regrets his superpowers, that kind of a character. I have to side with Whedon on this. I want the Teen Titans version of Cyborg. I want this character we all know and love. So, Godspeed, Joss. We have to talk about the Game of Thrones, man. We are waist deep in this season of Game of Thrones, and it's coming to a head fast. There's only a handful of episodes. There's not a lot left. I know, it feels like it just started too. So, the big news from this last episode is that it's pretty much confirmed that Jon Snow is a Targaryen. Not just a Targaryen, but not even a bastard. He is legit. He was done. His birth was done under a secret marriage, certified by the priesthood. So he is 100% legit. Not that being a bastard's a bad thing. It never was. It never was, people. But it makes sense for the Game of Thrones kind of, for feudalism, it matters, I guess. Also, they've come together to form this this bat poop crazy plan where they get a bunch of, thugs and ne'er-do-wells, and they all teaming up to go after the White Walkers at Eastmarch. It's basically like a Seven Samurai or a Suicide Squad kind of assault team that they've gotten together, and someone's gonna die. So who's gonna die? That's the question. But I don't know who you have your money on to get killed in this. The Hound. I don't know. But what I want to know is Benjamin Stark going to make an appearance? Benjamin Stark is the man, the Stark that's trapped beyond the wall. Apparently he's undead, but he gets to keep his mental faculties. He understands who he is and what he is. He's not under the command of the White Walkers. He's his own person, but he's stuck beyond the wall. Does he make an appearance? That's my question. I want to know if this guy comes back, and I want to see him kick some booty. I want him to come in. I want Jon Snow to be on the verge of death, and Benjamin Stark comes in and saves the day. These are the things that are on my wish list for next episode. Rick and Morty. Rick and Morty is also in its next season, and it is amazing. It perfectly fills the hole in my heart that was left by Futurama. If you haven't seen Rick and Morty, it is about a kid and his grandfather, who is a zany scientist who drinks a lot and has a very nihilistic view on reality. And he's a mad scientist too. He does all of the, evil robots and dimension hopping and all of that stuff. So in the first episode of the season, they referenced McDonald's Szechuan sauce. It was a McNuggets dipping sauce that was promotional for the Mulan movie, and it it wasn't actually all that popular. It was just here and then it was gone, and no one thought about it ever again until Rick and Morty brought it up. And now everybody is crazy for this thing because they don't remember it. I don't know. Anyways, McDonald's was happy that they got mentioned and got a lot of press from this. So they sent Rick and Morty a 3.5 gallon bottle of Szechuan sauce. And 3 bottles, actually. And they sold one of them online. It got 111 bids and sold for $15,350 online. People are weird, man. I don't understand this at all. This is beyond me. I'm sure it has something to do with the fandom of Rick and Morty, and maybe some sort of weird nostalgia for Mulan or old discontinued food items. I couldn't tell you. I really couldn't. It boggles my mind. But it's a fun story. So the last bit of news is that The Last Jedi, Star Wars Last Jedi, released some photos showing a cute little rodent creature called a porg next to Chewbacca on the Millennium Falcon. It looks like, Chewie is chilling out with the porgs, and these are little, like, furry, kind of hamstery, chinchilla, gerbily looking things with bad teeth. They're adorable. Some people are freaking out that they don't like this. This is Jar Jar Binks all over again. I don't know what it's going to be. They do look out of place, though. They look really out of place in the Star Wars movie. But it's going to be a small part. They're not going to be a huge thing. They're going to be a little kitschy kind of thing. There'll be plushies of them, and people will love the plushies. It'll be fine, people. I'm sure they won't have personalities. They'll just be tiny, cute things. That's it. We're going to step into the DeLorean, go back in time, and do a review. Today's review is Voltron, the Netflix series. The new season, season 3, was just released. It's only 6 episodes long. I binged them quite thoroughly. And they're quite enjoyable. If you haven't checked out the series, frankly, the original Voltron series back in the 80s was terrible. It isn't a good series. In fact, it was 2 Japanese series that were kind of smushed together haphazardly. Not in a great way like Robotech was done, but in a very poor way. And also, the original Japanese version had many more controversial themes that didn't make it into the American version. And because of that, it got cut to high heaven. The show just became this mess. But they've rebooted it on Netflix. It is put together by DreamWorks Animation, and most of the team that is working on Voltron worked on Avatar and The Last Airbender and Korra, The Legend of Korra. A lot of the same voice actors are there, and it's got that kind of irreverent fun to it. So if you don't know what Voltron is, it is about a team that pilots giant robot lions and defends space from the evil Zarkon. These lions can also combine to form a giant robot, humanoid robot named Voltron. This was kind of the precursor to Power Rangers. So, if you ever look at something and go, oh, that's a rip off of Power Rangers, don't. Hold on. Hold my beer. So, it's a really good series. It's got a lot of fun to it. The main characters, the pilots of the Lions, is Shiro, Keith, Lance, Pidge, and Hunk, who in the original series were all men, but in this series, Pidge is now recast as a woman. Allura and Corin are the guys who take care of them. They are like mission control. And Corin is one of the more funny characters in this series. He's pretty hilarious. At one point, he's explaining what Voltron is to them. And he explains it by saying, I'm paraphrasing here, he says, oh yes, Voltron works on scientific principles. And by science, I mean, of course, magic. Which I found that line immensely satisfying. Basically putting a lantern on the fact that nothing actually makes sense. Just don't think about it and move on with your lives. Have fun watching the show. And like I said, the show is fun. It has a main villain, which is the evil empire. Always an evil empire. There's always an evil empire to destroy. And the emperor is Zarkon, and he was like the original pilot of Voltron, and he's trying to wrestle control back from it. So a lot of cool stuff. This season, this third season, introduces a new character named Lothor, who is trying to remake the empire into Rome. He is, instead of saying that he is the superior, we are the superior race, and all of you will service us, it's more of everybody's a citizen. And we're going to bring you all into our empire, and everyone's going to fight for us. Which is, I like that. That makes the villain more, I don't know, ambiguous. Not straight up evil at this point. Now he's still evil, but he's more trying to build something, and I can respect that. He's a more respectable villain. So, do I recommend Voltron? Yes. If you're looking for a fun time, bright colors, animation, and cool, snappy lines, funny, but action-packed, Voltron, definitely. I like I said, I binge them. They're so good. So, let's move on to our main story of the night. It's our quest, the quest. Join me on our quest as we try to figure out what makes a good graphic novel. Join the conversation on Twitter at TrulyEvilBob. So I got a story to tell you people. I started reading The Ultimate Spider-Man back in 2000. Let me explain what The Ultimate is. Back in 2000, Marvel created a new series of comic books called The Ultimate Universe. And The Ultimate Universe was basically them making a new universe that had all of their flagship characters. There was an Ultimate Avengers called The Ultimates. There was Ultimate Spider-Man and Ultimate X-Men, and those were their big titles. And they tried to retell the old stories with these characters with a more modern appeal to them, and of course a little more dark, a little more hard-boiled. The least hard-boiled, the least dark or gritty rebooty of these guys was Spider-Man. They kept Spider-Man in high school. They didn't allow him to grow up. And they kind of tinkered with his origin. Instead of a radioactive spider, it was a genetically altered spider, which you can see that kind of influence in the movies too. A lot of the movies now kind of pull from the Ultimate Universe because there's a lot of good ideas that came from the Ultimates. Spider-Man, so I'm reading The Ultimate Spider-Man, and right smack dab in the middle is a storyline called The Ultimates. Not The Ultimates, I'm sorry. Right smack dab in the middle is a storyline called Ultimatum. And it's one of these large world changing storylines. And I was warned before reading this storyline that it is, quote, the worst of the worst. This is one of the most panned ever graphic novels you will read in comicdom. And I was like getting ready for something terrible to come my way. I was more surprised it wasn't as terrible as people said it was. I don't think it's the worst of the worst, but it is bad. And we're going to kind of pull that apart, see why it was bad. A couple years later, there was a DC graphic novel that did the same thing. It took all of the world. It was a new world-bending kind of graphic novel story called Flashpoint. And it did a lot of the same things Ultimatum did. They were very, very similar. But Flashpoint worked where Ultimatum did not. So why? What was the problem here? Graphic novels are their own medium. They're different from regular novels because there's a visual point to them. They're different from movies because you can do more with a graphic novel. You can go into people's thoughts. You can, kind of flesh out who these people are a little more than you can in movies. You can delve into a character with a graphic novel the way you can with a regular novel, but you can also visually tell a story. So there's differences in this medium. What Ultimatum did, and this was kind of the first time this happened, it was very confrontational. People have been reading Ultimate books for a couple years now, and they were getting used to these new characters. But the Ultimate Universe was not selling as well as the regular universe. Pretty much because, well, why read this universe when there's the regular universe? Why would you go and read this other thing? This other thing doesn't look like it matters as much as the main storyline. So they were going to shake it up. They were going to change things, and now the Ultimate Universe was was going to be its own. And it all starts with Ultimatum. The premise behind it is Magneto, the Master of Magnetism, Magneto, pulls off his ultimate war against humanity by shifting the poles of the Earth, changing magnetic north and magnetic south and reversing them, causing a great geological and weather catastrophes all over the world. Now, if you know a little bit about science, you know that polar shifts, magnetic polar shifts, have happened before in Earth's past and will probably happen again. And when these things happen, there's no weather changes. It's just a shift in magnetic structure. That's it. It's just North Pole becomes South Pole, South Pole becomes North Pole. The planet doesn't flip. Only the charges of the magnetic aura that surrounds the Earth, the Van Allen belts, that's all that happens. Those shift polarities. That's it. But hey, it's comic books. They want to go super with this. I get it. So Magneto does this, and it creates a tidal wave that bulldozes half of New York City, half of Manhattan underwater, like that. And the X-Men were visiting, and a whole bunch of X-Men just died. Dazzler, Nightcrawler, one other, Beast. Beast dies. Boom, dead. Smothered in water. You'd think Nightcrawler could have got out of it. The only person who survived was Angel, because he could fly, but Nightcrawler can teleport. I don't know. Whatever. He's dead. Don't worry about it. And it wasn't graphic. It was just 1 minute they were walking down the street, and the next minute they're underwater. Weird. Okay. That's interesting. We've been loving these characters for a while, but they're gone. It's all right because they're still the regular universe. The regular universe, these characters are fine and well. Nothing bad has happened to them in the universe that matters, right? So we continue on the story, and half of Europe has been flash frozen, and people are dying all around the world, and everybody knows it's Magneto's fault. And Magneto has a Brotherhood of Mutants, a group of people who are trying to stop humanity from persecuting mutants. They're his army. And one of them is the Blob. The Blob shows up with the Ultimates and eats the Wasp. Cannibalizes her. You see him eating her guts. And Ant-Man, his wife, gets so upset that he bites the Blob's head off and spits it out. It is one of the most graphic, gross things I have ever seen in comic books. Like I said, it's very confrontational. I don't know why that scene was there. There was no backup for the Blob. There were no other. Sabretooth wasn't with him. Mystique wasn't there. There were no other Brotherhood. It was just the Blob. Why was he there? Just to kill the Wasp? This makes no sense. Magneto shows up at the X Mansion and kills Xavier, and Xavier does nothing about it. He doesn't contact people. He just snaps his neck. They have a conversation beforehand, too, before he does it. It's the most baffling thing. So finally, all of the superheroes, they go to Magneto's place and they have their battle. And they kill Angel off in this battle, which I'm fine with. Sabretooth jumps Angel, kills him. This one is fine. They're doing a war. This makes sense. This is the final battle. There are some other deaths that happen. It looks like Wolverine dies, but he never dies. And finally, they kill Magneto and set the world right. This, there's a lot of things that kind of don't make sense, but I feel like they wanted to kill off these characters so they could bring in their new things and make the world their own. But did they do it right? Let's look at Flashpoint. So Flashpoint was a world-altering event in DC Comics where the Flash goes back in time and changes something, comes back to the future, and everything's different. All of the superheroes are different, and there's a huge superhero war between Wonder Woman and Aquaman. And in this war, superheroes die, just like Ultimatum. The superheroes are all getting together, they're marshaling their forces, and they finally come together in one final battle. But here's the thing about Flashpoint. No character dies without good reason in this. Each character death propels the story a little forward. They're not being killed just to be killed. Steve Trevor dies. Wonder Woman kills him. It's poignant because he's delivering information. He's caught, and he was once Wonder Woman's most trusted ally, and now he's someone she just doesn't care about and kills. There's meaning behind that. Most of these characters die in that final battle. You might say, well, Flashpoint is a different timeline. All this will be undone, and all these characters will come back to normal. That's different from Ultimatum. Ultimatum changes the storyline completely. But what you don't understand is both of these storylines happen in alternate universes, alternate timelines, alternate worlds. The Ultimate Universe is not the main 616 universe. 616 is their main storyline universe for Marvel. So it doesn't happen in their main storyline. It happens in this alternate storyline. So what does it matter? Same thing with Flashpoint. So that reasoning may not be completely correct, though. Like I said, you've been following these characters for several years in the Ultimate Universe. So should you be upset when your favorite dies? Have they gone on long enough to be separate characters at this point? Should the authors have respected these characters more? And I think it wasn't that they died that was the problem. It is the manner of how these characters were killed off. It felt like Marvel was just cleaning house. There's a scene in Ultimatum where Spider-Man is web-slinging, trying to save people, and comes upon Daredevil's dead body. He's just dead on the roof. We don't know the circumstances of his death. It's never revealed. He's just there and he's dead. If you like Daredevil, if you liked his parts in the Ultimate Universe, and you saw that, isn't that a big middle finger to you? You know, we talk about Game of Thrones, and people get so upset about Game of Thrones that these people, your favorite characters, just die. Well, no, none of these characters, none of the people who are important in Game of Thrones ever just die. They die always for reasons, for purposes. Their deaths are memorable because not only because they're shocking and unexpected, but because you can see how it fits into the main storyline, why they were important, and how it changes everything going from then on. In Ultimatum, you don't get a sense of that. You get no respect. It feels like they didn't respect their readership. And that is where Ultimatum truly failed as a graphic novel. Whereas when you go to Flashpoint, you see these great reimaginings of these characters. They're very different. Batman in Flashpoint is not Bruce Wayne, but in fact Thomas Wayne, and he has this great regret because in the alley where he was shot, instead Bruce Wayne was shot, and now he is Batman to get revenge on those who would do this kind of things. He never wants anybody to lose their son, so he goes out there and he's Batman all the time, but he's more of a tortured soul. It feels like he's lost everything. He drinks, he uses guns, and his main reason for getting involved in this entire war is because the Flash comes and says, hey, I've seen a better world, a world where your son exists. And it gives him hope. And even though that Batman dies at the end of Flashpoint, he goes forward knowing that he did it for a reason, that everything will be all right for him. And these are very strong, strong writing techniques. And I'm not sure where that was during Ultimatum. Maybe because Flashpoint came out after Ultimatum. Maybe the writers of Flashpoint saw Ultimatum and decided we can do that, but better. Let's correct these mistakes. Now, Ultimatum isn't totally terrible. I can see where they were going with it, why they chose, the grand storyline, Magneto actually going out and killing as many humans as possible and trying to reset the world for mutants. That makes sense. You never understand why he doesn't do that sooner, But I gotta say, I liked it a lot. Now, the Ultimate Universe never actually recovered. They never, after Ultimatum, they restart Ultimate Spider-Man, and it feels like nothing has changed. In fact, all of the titles start back up. X-Men, Ultimates, they all start back up again, and they reference Ultimatum, that it happened, but it doesn't feel like anything has changed. Not until the death of Peter Parker. They kill off Spider-Man, and they bring in a new Spider-Man, Miles Morales. Does anything feel like it's changed? Anything feels different? And I guess the Ultimate Universe never recovered from this, because soon after that, they create a storyline, another world-changing storyline called Secret Wars, that merges the Ultimate Universe and the main 616 universe together. And now Miles Morales, who is the bright spot of the Ultimate Universe, is now part of the main universe. And the main universe is the one that matters. It's the one everybody cares about. It's the one where he should have been all this time. Now, after Flashpoint, DC Comics created a new comic line called the New 52, which was a reimagining again of all of the superheroes, more towards what the core of these heroes are. They didn't go way out there with them. They just kind of tweaked each character a little bit and started everything over from issue 1, but gave it a grittier kind of feel. The Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises and Man of Steel were out, and Warner Brothers wanted to change DC to fit their movies more. So they gave it this gritty feel, and nobody liked it. It was the same problem people had with the Ultimate Universe. That grittiness is too overbearing for comic books, for especially superhero comic books. So nowadays, if you ever read a DC comic nowadays, you'll see a word across the title called Rebirth, where they are trying to rebrand their comics again to go back to that earlier time before the New 52, where comics had a lighter touch to them. There are some gritty books, but not everything is like that. There's no prevailing grittiness throughout the entire line. And it's working out a lot better. They're doing much better in selling comic books. Well, I hope you found this discussion of Ultimatum and Flashpoint interesting. I've used up my time. You know, I am at Truly Evil Bob on Twitter. If you want to talk more about this subject, I will be there. I will be back next week, 1 o'clock on Tuesday. We'll have a new topic. I'll see you then.